Welcome to the Art of Advocacy. I'm your host, Dr. Sheldon L. Eakins. I'm coming to you. If you watched a few of these episodes, you'll notice that the background looks a little different. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to be speaking tomorrow, Pendergast School District, and so I'm really excited for that. Great opportunity. I love being on stage, and it's a school season starting up again, so we're doing a lot of back to school stuff happening, and so I don't have my mixer with me, so my music and microphone, all that we're gonna do it the old school way. You know what I'm saying? So just welcome. Feel free to say hello in the comments as you're logging in. I have a really special treat for you today. As always, I got to do it. Leading Equity. I brought it with me. That's right. I traveled with the book. So Leading Equity, if you haven't gotten the book yet, make sure that you order it. It is available. You can purchase a copy. You can purchase a signed copy on the website, leadingequitycenter.com. So we're going to bring on our special guest today. We're going to be talking about Shift Happens. And so I'm really excited for my two guests. Hillary and Mia is going to be here. So before we get started on that, let me see if I can read a brief piece of their bio. So Dr. Hillary Goldthwait-Fowles is a nationally certified assistant. Oh my God, I cannot read today. Nationally certified assistive technology professional, providing consultation training and evaluation services to educational and other institutions in the areas of assistive technology, AT. Okay, and also we have Miss Mia. Oh my gosh, Mia, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name, so if I butcher it, please correct me when you jump on. Mia Ladato received her MS-ED in Exceptional Student Education, specializing in learning disabilities and emotional behavioral disorders from the University of Miami. So, without further ado, I wish I had my sound effects. Without further ado, Mia and Hillary, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Mia, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You nailed it. It's a 50-50 chance, and you did it. That was awesome, man.
Hillary, did I get you right as well?
No, you did. That's a tough one, and you did it. You did a great job. Fantastic.
See, that's what that public education could do for you, I guess. I was able to read it properly. Okay, well, welcome to the show. I briefly kind of introduce you by struggling to read a sentence on each of your bio. I don't know what today. It's just been a day, I guess. But Hillary, let's start with you. I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and what you currently do. So why don't you share with the audience?
Sure. So I am currently an instructional design specialist at the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm working with an amazing team of people who are designing interactive and accessible learning experiences in and out of the Institute. And my focus is on their neurodevelopmental pediatric curriculum, which is awesomely creative and fun. So it marries kind of all of my experiences as an educator and assistive technology specialist in a kind of fun way. And I get to work from home, which is kind of mint, not going to lie. But I also do private consulting in assistive technology, accessible educational materials, and universal design for learning. And I also am a subject matter expert and course teacher for 2 universities in the state of Maine, which I was born and raised. I did leave briefly, but I came back because, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, there really is no place like home.
There's no place like home. Now, I got a follow-up for you because I'm interested. How did you get into the work that you're doing? What brought you there?
Oh, it goes way back to when I was 5 years old, actually, Sheldon. It's a great question. My mother was a paraprofessional or an ed tech in a small school district in Maine. And I was a kindergarten student, and her classroom with her students, it was 1977. So now you know how old I am, which is fine. I don't care. And she had these great kids, but I always wondered, why were they in the basement where there was no little teeny windows, and their bathroom was gross, and they had yucky furniture and didn't have even the same kinds of crayons that we had upstairs in kindergarten. And so I would pretend to be sick in kindergarten, and I'm crying to my teacher, Miss Wheelgus. I don't feel so good. My tummy hurts. Can I go see my mommy? I didn't want to see my mom. I love my mom, but I didn't want to see my mom. I wanted to be with the kids that she was teaching because they were fun. They had a lot to offer. And I was so curious about them because they were different, not because it was a bad thing, but it was more of understanding who they were as people and what made them tick and finding some common threads. And so that's been with me pretty much my whole entire life. And I wound up as a special education teacher myself for a number of years, and then landed into assistive technology about 12 years ago. And I left that role in January for a beautiful, amazing opportunity at the Kennedy Krieger Institute. And I've been very fortunate to be able to meet Mia in a great way and partner up with her as not just a partner in crime, but a dear beloved friend and soul sister that we came up with this, and we'll talk more about it, but we're just so excited to bring it to the world and share it with y'all tonight.
Thank you for sharing your story. I always like to know the origin stories about how people get into the work that they do. So I appreciate you for sharing that with us. And y'all look like best friends, to be honest. Like just even when we were backstage, the two of you were just kind of like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you." It was just it was really. I enjoyed watching the two of y'all interact as y'all both joined on. Let's move on to Mia. Mia, share a little bit about yourself and what you currently do.
So I am currently in Orlando, Florida, and this is not where I was born or raised, but this is where I've landed. I was actually born in Chicago, raised in Wisconsin, and ended up in Miami for school. And I didn't even go to school for education. I remember my fourth grade teacher saying, "Oh, do you want to be a teacher at some point?" I was like, "No, why would I want to do that?" I saw what she dealt with in the classroom. I was like, you guys do way too much work for what you're getting. I didn't think I wanted to be a teacher, but I actually, my heart kind of always led me back there. Currently, I provide professional development and coaching and facilitate learning for 7 different districts in the state of Florida. And I'm an educational consultant outside of that in educational technology, assistive technology, universal design for learning, accommodations, IEP goal writing, because I actually did get my master's in special education. And that was due to the fact that I got my undergrad at University of Miami, go Canes, in advertising. And in my last semester, I kind of just had like a existential crisis. And I was like, like this just doesn't feel like this business world doesn't feel fulfilling. And I called up my godmother and I was like, what am I going to do? And she's like, well, what would you have done? Like, what would you have done? I said, well, my cousin was born normal, but neurodiverse normal, meaning, like physically normal and neurodiverse, what that looks like. But then she, yeah, go you. Thank you, Elizabeth. But then she contracted a fever and then got CP. And I only met her once in my life. I was like 8 years old. We went to New York. My family is from Italy, landed in New York. And I met her at 8 years old and everybody's like, oh, she's special. And I was like, what do you mean? And she could not verbalize to me, but we communicated. And I immediately felt a bond with her. I spent the entire time there, never had a problem. And she literally changed my life. I just thought she was the coolest thing in the whole wide world. She unfortunately passed at 16 years old. I've had just this deep rooted connection. Her name is Frances. And so that experience kind of came full circle when I was getting out of school. And I was like, I really think I want to work with students with special education and students with disabilities, possibly in theater, because I am a theater major. And then the next day I look in the newspaper and there is an advertisement for a scholarship for a master's in special education for non-education majors. It was due in a week. I applied, I got in, and the rest is history. So
Wow.
I know that's like, so like, I mean, for me, it's a God thing. Like, I was just like, holy cow, like, this is a divine intervention. Like, this is the path that I was meant to, go on. But yeah, I'm very similar to Hillary. We were just, we had people or things in our lives that just touched us and never left us. So, and
Yeah.
I'm thankful for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So at some point, the two of you connected because y'all didn't grow up in the same place. Y'all in different cities. So how did the two of you? Who would like to share? How did the two of you connect?
Go ahead, Hills.
All right. So we, the Universal Design, the UDL community is very different, but also a little small. It's growing, but we were at the UDL IRN. It's the International Research. So it's the research arm of Universal Design for Learning, their annual summit in Orlando, Florida, which for me as a Mainer was wonderful to go in March. And we had been connected through Twitter. I don't know about you, but I love the Twitter. I primarily use it professionally, but I have met so many amazing human beings on Twitter, like you and Mia and so many others. So we were at the session and all of a sudden it like clicked like, oh, you, I know you, and you, I know you. And the next thing you know, we like hugged for like a bajillion minutes. And then we're out in the hallway talking about something we noticed in the Universal Design for Learning world. Now, as you know, Universal Design for Learning was originally intended by David Rose to deal with barriers for people with various disabilities. What we notice as teachers who have taught and worked with kids with significant disabilities, that was missing. That was missing. It really wasn't like there, where how do you make that happen? How does it work? It was more kind of theoretical. It was like, no, you can do this and it is possible to do. So we had this long conversation. When you go to conferences, those hallway conversations or the ones at the bar or the ones outside, those are the best ones. And this was one of the best ones. And out of that was born the foundational work for Shift Happens.
Yeah. And what was really cool, Sheldon, was that like we were having this conversation, noticing that no breakout sessions. We're like, this is kind of odd. And then a lady named Joy Zabala, who is unfortunately just passed and just amazing in our field. She lived and was retired in Florida at the time. And I had gone up to her afterwards and I was telling her what Hillary and I was talking about. And she actually had worked a lot with students with significant disabilities. And she looked at me and she said, Mia just only knew me like very just from passing at conferences. And she's like, Mia, she's like, you guys need to do this. She's like, I had never, I hadn't presented at UDL IRN yet. I had just done some stuff at FETC. But she said, you guys need to do this and it's important and you need to bring that voice out. And then the rest is history. Like we've just, from there on out, we're trying to get it out. So.
Well, here we are. This is a great platform to get it out. So one of the things I noticed about Shift Happens is Shift seems to be an acronym for something. So Mia, I'm going to throw it to you. Why don't you explain a little bit more about what Shift Happens is?
Well, so we came up with the title Shift Happens, and then it just like one day became a framework. I was like, okay, what does like Shift stand for? And I was talking to Hillary and we were like, yeah, Shift stands for something. And so Shift Happening is obviously like a growth mindset thing happening where we're like, okay, students with significant disabilities, can learn in inclusive environments with our supports, but you have to have a framework, right? So we're trying to put it all together. So S is for Shift. S in Shift is supports in place, right? We're going to have the supports in place and we're going to talk about that. Then H is going to be have a plan. Once you got the supports in place, then you need to have a plan on what you're going to do with it. I is to include, right? We're looking for inclusion in general ed settings so that our students with significant disabilities are a part of our world and are contributing in our world in schools and beyond. F is for the framework. So that's the UDL framework for all learners. and using the framework so that that the universal design for learning framework, so that all learners can learn and the barriers can be removed. And then T is a team's approach. You cannot do any of this without a team's approach and a collaboration. So supports place, have a plan, include framework, supporting all learners with universal design for learning, and then T for team's approach.
Nice. Hillary, did you want to add to that?
Well, it's kind of true. And I wanted to kind of expand upon the team's approach, because we talked about, like, we've expanded a little bit about that part, and kind of the I part for include is also intentional, because we tend not to. We tend to put kids with significant disabilities into programs under the guise of they're safer there or they're protected there. When if we did some looking at the universal design for learning framework and looked at a typical classroom environment, we could make adjustments to the design space of that room. We could put some things in place, such as supports, and we can work with the people in our inclusive learning neighborhood, such as our occupational therapists, our speech therapists, our special education teachers, out of the silos and into more integrative practices, so that those supports are happening first and not after the fact, and that our kids with significant disabilities are actually honored and centered. And so part of this too for us is just not just from our own experience, but from our passion from learning and listening to disability rights advocates, people in the disability rights community, such as Alice Wong and Mia Mingus from the Access is Love is their moniker, where you bring accesses from a place of love. And it's not something that you have to do because it's legal. It's just the right thing to do. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. And that also comes into play with intersectionality of disability. So part of the SHIFT framework also looks at the intersectionality of kids with significant disabilities, and what is their culture? Where are they from? Do they speak? And if they don't, is their AAC device, for example, to their, native language? Do they have, if they're Black, do they have Black icons, that represent people that look and sound like them? All kinds of things. So looking at that representation in their materials, their methods, the assessments, and not being this group of kids that are in that room over there that everybody's wondering about, but more that they're a part of the community. They belong. Not just we've given you a space, so you're included, specials and lunch and music, yay, here you go. But it's deeper than that. It's richer than that. And when we do that, we're really honoring variability, because we're all different. Why not honor that instead of being afraid of that? So what we're trying to do is really help people understand that. And part of that is internal, where I have I like acronyms, if you can't tell with SHIFT. It's called JAB. And it's kind of part of the unlearning, like an onion, right? Where we've been all conditioned, right? We all have things we've been conditioned, messages we've heard, things we've seen, experiences we've had that tell us something about someone. But they really don't, because that's a judgment. I'm placing a judgment on you either based on your ability, perceived ability. So there's a perception that kids with significant disabilities can't. They can, it's just different. So we got to flip that. And that's something that unlearning you've got to do. And then your attitudes about kids with significant, and not just kids with significant, this also applies. You could apply this to all, people that are in the margins. You could apply this to the intersectionalities of all that. What attitudes do we have? Like, someone else's lifestyle is different from, and that's bad. Well, no, are they hurting in it? Like, where's that coming from? Let that go. And then your beliefs. What do you believe? Do you believe that everybody belongs? Do you believe that everybody has a voice? Do you believe, as a person like me, as a white woman, as a position of power and who is able-bodied, that I can give that up and share that? Because there's plenty to go around. Right. And Andra, I want to take a minute too and acknowledge the work of Andra Tisha Fitzgerald, because she's informed a lot of our work from an anti-racist and universal design for learning perspective. And she talks about, honor and power and giving that up and what's afraid. And I was thinking about what her words very deeply today. And for me, it wasn't about what am I losing by sharing or giving up some, but what am I going to gain from that? So there's that mindset flip. There's that jab. You got to take a jab at your judgments, attitudes, and beliefs, your internal dialogue about things, and that quick stop instead of saying, you know what, if I could give you as an educator all the things and all the tools and all the supports, wouldn't you want all the kids in there? I'm not talking 50 kids, but wouldn't you want variability? Because you could teach to it because you have everything you need, rather than waiting for RTI or referral or special, all working together for a goal. Why are we doing it separately? I just don't get it.
You're blowing my mind. I have taken all, like, my paper, that my notepad is filling up with notes. I see a comment from Elizabeth. Welcome, Elizabeth. She wants to know, is there a link that shows shift as a graphic?
We do. We have. Yes. We just don't have it right here, right now, but we do have a blog post too with inclusive think. And we can drop that. Can we drop that in the, I wonder if we can drop that in the, chat.
I can look for it. If you have, one of you have a second to kind of look it up, and then we'll drop it in a link for Elizabeth and whoever else is watching, so that way that's there. And she also is asking, what about 2E students as well?
Oh, good question. It belongs.
Yeah, that 2E students. I actually need clarification on that. I don't think I've ever heard that term.
Yeah, tell us some more, Elizabeth. So while she's doing it, Hillary, it's funny. I love the JAB, the judgments, attitudes, and beliefs.
She's brilliant.
That is right there. And I love how you say it's not just for, because sometimes, and I used to do special ed, and it was always those kids, or are those your kids, Dr. Eakins? Are these, is this one of yours? And I always would say, they're one of yours too. Like they're all.
I say, I would say, did I give birth to? Do you see? I didn't give birth to. At the time I was pregnant with my son. Like, really? That would be really fast. Because no, there are kids. I don't own them. They're not my possessions. No. They're children.
Yeah.
There's joy and love of learning in all of it, and that's the bigger goal, is to instill that no matter who it is, or where they come from, or what their abilities or perceived abilities are. You got to presume competence for kids with significant disabilities, because if you do a different approach and you have the shift framework, I'm telling you, beautiful things can happen. I've watched it. It's wonderful when that happens.
And speaking of presuming competence, like there's Carol Gary, she is another professional in the field that we look to, a speech language therapist, amazing mentor. And she has Practical AAC. That's her Twitter handle. She has a model where it's like perception, expectation, opportunity, and achievement. And it all feeds each other. And that's about presuming that competence and potential that we're talking about in the shift, and getting those the things in place, that S, because if your perception of someone is that they can't learn, what are you going to do? What's going to be expectation? Well, the expectation is that I'm not really going to give you a lot because I don't think you can learn, right? So I'm not going to give you a lot. Well, if I'm not going to give you a lot, and that's my expectation, then how many opportunities am I going to give you, right? Probably a lot less than the other kids that I'm perceiving, right? And then what's your achievement going to look like? And it just feeds. It's just a wheel, right? But then if I have the perception that, you know what, I don't know what you can do. I don't know what you can do, but my perception is that you can do anything that we can put our minds to, right? That we can think of. So then the expectation is that I'm gonna believe that of you. I will believe that of you. My opportunities, I'm gonna give you tons of opportunities to do that. And then your achievement is gonna be higher. Isn't there is actual research, right? Research about, oh gosh, there's this quote where it is what we expect of people, they will, it's for students too, what we expect of them, they will give us. Mm-hmm. So if we expect nothing of them,
is it like the self-fulfilling prophecy?
Kind of.
It is, but there's actual there's a educational research that actually is tied to diverse students, minority students, that basically says that your expectation of those students is directly tied to what they will do for you. Because if they're coming in and you're expecting, like, you look at them and you're like, they ain't going to do anything. They will do that. They will do exactly that.
Right.
Because that's, again, it fits into that model, Carol Zangary's model: perception, expectation, opportunity, achievement. And so we're like, yeah, y'all, we are going to start with perceiving, competence, and potential.
Yeah, we always presume
Yeah.
confidence and potential, and everyone has potential. And yes,
Yeah.
disability, and also disability is not a bad word. It's okay to say that.
No.
It's okay. Like that's something I've learned from listening, to Judy Human and, Mary Fashik, who is Upgrade Accessibility is her handle. And she talks a lot about intersectionality. I've learned a lot just by listening to her and learning from her and reading her book. And that's the other part is we need to listen to the population of people that we're serving, whether they're kids or adults or whatever. We need to listen and plan and include them in these plans too. Maybe there's something they don't want to learn, and that's okay. We can design around that, and we should, and it also gives the teacher back the power of creativity, designing, and control over their classroom, not like a power control, but a shared control where it becomes communal. It's more of community care and compassion and empathy coming from a place of love. And so that's where justice comes.
I love that.
We know our systems were messed up from the start. We all know that, but you can't change, famous doctor says it, but I love what he says about it is you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Right. So
right.
You've got to acknowledge it first. And the problem is we have these environments that are inequitable. They are harming kids. They are harming teachers. And they're harming parents. They're harming people. It's not okay. I love education. I love to learn. And I want that for everybody. Not everybody's had that experience. And that's not okay. So what do we do about it? We've got to think differently. It doesn't mean I'm not bashing teachers. I'm not bashing administrators. But there is a system that's been designed exactly the way it is. But we need to change that because it's just not okay. It's not okay. And then the love of learning is gone. And so then what do you do for the rest? You're learning outside of school. Learning happens outside of school, and learning we're all learning right now in this environment. And we're not in school, we're adults, but you're constantly learning it. And if we don't teach kids those skills and help them understand what their strengths and challenges are and give them supports and inform them of them and involve them in them, we're done. And so that's the other element, little nuances of the SHIFT framework too, but that is applicable for every kid. And if as a teacher, I don't know what I need as a learner, how am I going to help provide that for children?
That kind of, I'm sorry, real quick. That leads to kind of the initial question that
twice exceptional.
What Elizabeth was asking about, what about our twice exceptional students when it comes to doing this work? Mia, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, so I'm just going to give you a quote that we use, and I just love it about inclusion, and that's, in simple terms, diversity is the mix, and inclusion is getting the mix to work well together.
Okay.
Diversity is the mix, right? And inclusion is getting the mix to work well together. It's not like these kids over here, the twice exceptional kids over here, the kid, right? And that's from the global diversity practice. And twice exceptional kids are absolutely in the mix, right? My nephew has autism, and he is a success story. He was in a separate class setting, went to Virginia, received supports, and was included and graduated high school. When he first started out, they were like, ain't gonna happen. Like they were like, start setting up, and he's actually at 20 more successful than a bunch of other 20-year-olds I know right now. You know what I'm saying? So I have friends that have twice exceptional students that are that have autism, incredibly talented with math and science, but have some social skills deficits, executive functioning deficits, even reading deficits, right? Like even reading disabilities. Those students, in general, most twice exceptional students are included in the general ed curriculum from what I've seen as a teacher over and professional developer and coach over my 20 some years of practice. However, it is very important that the twice exceptional students that don't look like the rest of us, like the students that Hillary and I have worked with that might have CP, that are cerebral palsy, that are in a wheelchair, that have a switch, and they are completely able to handle all of the curriculum, but they use an AAC device to communicate, and they use Switch as device. Like, those are the students that we're talking about that are in the margins that, again, we have to presume competence, like, right? That's who we're advocating for, because those are the kids that get left in the wings. And the bottom line about universal design for learning, as you know, and that's why we include the framework in the shift, right? The framework to support all students, is that if we can do and include for the most significant disabilities, right, then we can include everybody. Like, if we're doing it here, and as a former special ed teacher, we can do it here, it perfectly goes with everything else that we're doing in a general education classroom. Now, are we expecting general education classroom teachers to do this by themselves? Heck no. I did both, right? No, that's not fun. We don't just we're talking about some collaborative teaching, again, getting those supports in place, getting those coaches in place, getting those paraprofessionals in place. But absolutely, we are talking about twice exceptional students that don't look like your neurotypical twice exceptional student that normally would be getting included, because what do they look like? I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, you answered it to me. So Elizabeth, let us know if there's more. Jen Lee is asking, how does IEP services differ from shift? Hillary, you want to take that on?
Go, Hillary, go.
Can I please take that one? Special education as a service, not a place. So it doesn't matter where that service is delivered. It should be delivered in the least restrictive environment. We put barriers and things on what that means based on silos that we've created. And I think that it's time for us to rethink that. Have a speech pathologist co-teach with you, and you can have some speech therapy, because that speech therapist is still working with that child and doing that skill, because they also might hit some kids that might not, but, oh, wait, we've got you can't. Yes, you can. Why can't you? Because that person's in their inclusive learning neighborhood. And I'm also now sharing some information and resources that I feel very strongly should be shared with everybody. I'm not an expert, but I know some stuff about AT, and I know some stuff about this, but I want to share it. I also recognize too, there's licensing and professional things that we have to be mindful of, but you can still deliver services in the regular ed setting and not segregated away. I know we have to protect privacy for certain things, and there are certain things that we're not going to do toileting, in certain environments. We're going to adjust and adapt, but we both feel very strongly that IEP services can and should be delivered in that in that least restrictive environment. Can I go back really quick to Elizabeth's thing about twice accept and universal? Because there's a quote I want to read from Elizabeth Hartman's research, and I think this might help our audience in kind of what we're talking about. And we have mic drops attached to this, so just bear with me. This quote is directly from her research, which is, the title is Universal Design for Learning and Learners with Severe Support Needs. It was back in 2015. And she says this: the UDL framework states that learners with severe disabilities, like all learners, should not be defined by their perceived impairments because they require access to certain supports to learn. Mm. When teachers embrace the conceptual shift of the UDL framework and learner variability, they understand that severe disabilities are part of the natural diversity that is to be expected and embraced in classrooms.
That's right.
In the show right here. In the show, like done.
No, not yet. Because you know why? You know why, Sheldon? Because the shift without the F is just what?
Well, this is a family show.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
But the F is.
That's right. You have to have that framework in there for that support for all of our students, for the ones that, the ones that need it the most, the ones that are in the margins.
Yeah. And that's okay. That we've just got to do it. It's long overdue. It's just long overdue.
Now I got a question, because, and we were talking backstage before we went live. I said something about low functioning students. And Mia, you jumped in and said, no, we don't utilize that term anymore. And I was like, you know what? Absolutely, that's on me, and I don't even know why I brought that up. But if we often say high functioning, and that seems to be okay. So what would be, I guess, an alternative language that we can utilize if we're saying they're not high functioning? But what would be the opposite of that?
So it's not necessarily the opposite of that. It's
Okay.
like, again, shifting our thought process of how we see human beings, right? And actually, this kind of ties into what the people at CARE are doing, the Center for Anti-Racism Education, people out there. And one of their principles is seeing people as humans first, right? Like, we're seeing the humanity in people. So if we see the humanity in people, do we say low functioning, high functioning? Because what does that even mean? Sheldon, what does low functioning mean to you that means to me? I just hiked up a mountain that my niece thought was moderate, that I was like dying. Right. So like, and when we look at those words, right, especially as we write IEPs and 504s, we got to hone in on it being observable and measurable. Right. So when we think of students and their capabilities and presuming competence, what we're going to say is, a student that is, like what kind of curriculum maybe they're working with. Oftentimes they're, it's a student that's working on general education curriculum standards, maybe, or a student that in a lot of states, like in Florida, we have access points standards that are access points to the general curriculum standards. So we'll say they're working, but students could be working on access points in Florida, and they could be working on general ed standards, right? So it's what kind of work are they working on and doing, not low functioning, high functioning, because with UDL, there's something called a jagged profile, right? I know. Girl, I had the quote up too. Like, we are like right here. Like, we're not even looking at the same things that she knows. So there's a jagged profile. We all have variability, right? Like, so that jagged profile applies to every single one of us. None of us is quote unquote normal. None of us is average, right? And that's the myth of average, and what started universal design getting the speed was that TED talk on universal design by David Rose about the myth of average, right? So when you look at the variability and all of our jagged profiles and where we all end, a student could be somewhere over here on one end, and it doesn't matter if they have autism or not. We all have certain qualities that are similar. We have a lot of qualities that are different. So we really need to look about how we are framing ourselves and our students, right? How we're talking about each other. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. No, that was great. Hillary, did you want to jump in? Because the two of y'all are like tag teaming tonight.
That's how we roll. That's just how we roll, Sheldon. Seriously, that's just how we do. The jagged profile is so cool because you can be one way one day and one thing on another day, or even in a different moment. And that's true of anybody, including kids with significant disability. They might be, I hear some, they're so on today. Well, maybe they're just feeling really good today. And maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe their body hurts. Like, why don't you ask what's going on? We do that with each other. Oh, Mia, I noticed something's up. Are you okay? You can still do that, but it's different how we do that. It's a different approach. That's where those supports come in place, because you might need more supports for someone who does not communicate in the way that we're communicating right now.
Right.
But is using an augmentative communication device, or might be using sign language or symbols or pointing or grunting, whatever that is. It's still communication, or refusing to do work. That's communication. You're telling me something that maybe what I'm doing kind of stinks. And that's okay too. And there's no judgment about that. And that's something Andra Tisha talks about, is accepting kids where they are.
Yeah.
Love.
We do.
And saying, I see you and I know it's okay, but it's okay.
Yes, that's right. You too, man.
Yeah.
Common thread, Sheldon. Like, that's exactly it. But then also saying to them, you know what? You are also brilliant. There is brilliant. And this is what Andra Tisha talks about that I love so much. You have greatness within you. Les Brown said you have greatness and brilliance within. Everybody does. Cultivating, nurturing it, tapping into it. And I don't mean like y'all had to be like Tom Brady. That's okay. Or whatever quarterback or person you admire, whatever. You just be the best you for you. on any, and someday maybe that looks a little different. Like my best when I'm not feeling great, or my allergies are acting up, or I have a migraine, or my, something happened personally, might not be as good as when all things are checking out and everything's clicking. And that's okay. We tend to like say, oh no, you have to be, it's wrong. It's wrong. And we need to talk about these things more, for sure.
Hillary, can I just add to your thing that, because I think what really wraps that up is about the team's approach, because, it is hard to be a teacher. Okay. Like if you are a teacher and you're watching right now, we are telling you, thank you for being in the trenches. It is harder now than it has ever been. Like, I mean, unless we're going back to like on the prairie days, I don't know. It is super hard.
Yeah.
And you have to have a team. Like, this is why, like, you have to have a hype crew. You got to have a team, because you might be off one day and you're going to be leaning on that other person. And like Hillary and I have a quote, and it's, a successful team does not operate in isolation, but recognizes the strengths and skills of each individual towards the successful collaboration for inclusion. Like, you cannot do this without a team. Like this framework needs all of these things. And we just need to recognize that, because you are going to have bad days. You're going to have days that you're going to want to quit. And that's where you tap out. Like in that moment, I had to tap out. I was like, we had symbols, like we had signs in our classroom that was like, I'm tapping out. Like, you got to go in, because this kid today and I are just not gelling, and I'm not feeling the love. And I got, right? Like, we recognize that. This is not like, oh, the shift, it's going to change everything in your life. No, it's going to give you a framework of support so like you can start just plugging in, and we can really move towards where we all need to go as a society.
Tell me more about that, Mia. You said that there was a sign that you could do that. I mean, how did that work? Because the reason why I'm asking, right? Because it is a thing, and I've had some interviews with folks that have had some similar process, which, as an educator, as teachers, we're still human beings. And sometimes we get frustrated. Sometimes, like you said, we don't have the best day in the class, or a student just, things happen. So tell us a little bit more as far as that process, just kind of what happens when I do this, or what brings me there. Like, just tell us more.
So often in a classroom, even in a general education classroom, you have centers, and kids aren't just always doing, like, best practices. You're not doing a whole class all the time. Right. So, a tap out might look different in different places. But if you're co-teaching with a teacher and you're with a certain group, and a kid is getting, a kid and you are just not gelling, sometimes instead of having that student take a break, right? Sometimes it's just like looking at the teacher across the way that you're co-teaching with, or maybe this speech language pathologist that's in the room, and you just do one of these. Like, you do like a tap, and she knows that we're just going to switch it up. We're just going to switch it up for a minute or two to like reframe, and then you just switch back. Sometimes that's enough, right? And I think it's just the idea of not always having the kid tap out, because sometimes you're the one, like, you're the trigger, right?
Right.
So and you also need to sometimes just, or even just giving the group a break and saying, you know what, kids, we're going to give you 5 minutes. Like, everybody's going to stay here, maybe work on some stuff, and I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to go get some stuff, and I'm going to tap myself out, like, and calm down and reframe so that I can take a breath, maybe look at something funny, make a laugh, make myself laugh, whatever, and then take a drink of water, sniff some salt. I don't know. And then, and then come back. I think teachers don't give themselves, teachers don't even give themselves bathroom breaks because they can't, right?
Right.
But I think we need to build that in for ourselves when we have our team or when we don't. That teacher care, like, if we are to sustain any of this, even public education, we need to be taking care of ourselves, putting that oxygen mask on ourselves, so that we can then feed, love, pour into, support, expect, embrace, our students. And teachers, as my son says, Mom, teachers are the root of all professions. If we didn't have teachers, we wouldn't have professions. So I am telling you, that's my son right there, AJ Leibowitz. He's like, Mom, the teachers are roots of all professions. I don't get why we treat them so bad. If we are the root of all the professions that come out, then why are we need to think about that. But that's a whole nother show.
That's such a great point, Mia, too. And the other thing about teams, if you don't mind me adding, is trust. Mutual trust and respect. You got to feel safe. And a lot of educators don't feel safe to do what's right because they've either been told they're pushy. I've never had that happen to me ever. Or that, your advocacy is a little too harsh, or, your tone, or, you're being ableist, you're the problem when you're calling out things that are not working very well, or you're not having a good day and somebody uses that against you. Or even if you're doing a learner profile with somebody to see how teachers could do this with their kids, and they're like, are you going to use this against us? That's scary that teachers feel that way, that it's this combativeness between like admin and teachers and parents, and IEP meetings can be so, that's another topic for another day. We're all trying to accomplish the same thing, but where universal design comes in, we have a clear goal. Hopefully we have a clear goal. I would hope we have a clear goal, but the means are flexible to get to that goal. But that back to love and care for each other, and to not judge when someone's having a bad day, but to maybe sit with them if they want to. And say, when you're ready, I got a rope. You can come on out, but I'm here and I'm not going anywhere, because I love you. I might, because we're doing the same thing, human being to human being. And maybe some people are different about what they conceptualize as love is. But for me, it's collective humanity. We all have a common thread, that's our humanity, every single one of us. And we should love more on that than judging each other for the things that we think we're not, or what we perceive other things to be. And we have a really great opportunity with all of the things that are going on right now to really step back and think. We don't give ourselves time to reflect or think or process. And we need to do that. And some of these things we're talking about for supports for kids with significant are great for everybody.
Everybody.
Right.
Say it again. Say it.
Essential for some, usable by all.
And it takes the stigma out, and it takes the othering out.
Yep.
Because it's just there, and it's just part of the beauty that is variability.
I saw a meme earlier today. I don't remember who it was. I don't even remember which social media platform I was on. I just on one of them. And it basically said, instead of talking about, in order to solve the teacher shortage problem, because, right now that's a big challenge right now is a lot of our schools, instead of trying to lower your standards when it comes to who you accept to or hire, right? Instead of doing that, why don't we consider paying more? Why don't we consider some other options so that we are getting that quality? Because I don't remember, was it Mia? I think was the one that said, your son said, teachers teach everybody, right? You got to come through us.
We're the birthplace of all professions.
For all professions.
All professions. If you're doing something, you got a teacher to thank for it. Come on.
Yeah. So and I read that meme or quote or GIF caption, I don't know terms these days, but I read it and I was just like, I never thought about it that way. But it's like, it is that is something like we say we value our teachers and they're so important, but yet the action isn't always there. So this conversation has gone in all different directions, but I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Elizabeth has asked for your socials. So would you mind sharing your Twitter handles? Mia, why don't you start us off?
Okay, can I put in the chat so we have multiple memes, or will that you can share that, right?
Yeah, you can put it in the chat.
At Sped Tech Mia, Sped SPEDTECHMIA at Sped Tech Mia. I am so excited to connect because that's how me and Hillary did, and that's how I found you, Sheldon. I'm super excited about that. Thank you.
And
then Hillary.
And my Twitter handle is Hillary, HILLARY _ A is in alpha, T is in tomato, P is in Paul. That's ATP. Hillary _ ATP.
And you can find us in a hashtag community. So commune, just like COMMUN, and then a capital AT. Get it? Community, like we're right. Assistive technology and technology ed tech people. We follow that hashtag, and AT chat, UDL chat, diversity chat. Like, I mean, Sheldon's chat. If you follow Sheldon, obviously you do because you're here. We're so excited because we follow him and love him too. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Let me see if there are any other comments. If there's any other questions, folks that are watching, feel free to drop them in. We're going to start wrapping things up. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad the two of you were able to come on. Thank you for that, by the way. So appreciate that. I'm going to give a thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth says, I highly encourage reading Leading Equity Empowers to empower your teacher voice for all students. Thank you, Elizabeth. Really do appreciate you and your support. Any final words? Let's do this. Let's move to final words. So Hillary, why don't you start, close us out, take us home with your final thoughts from today's discussion.
Oh, wow. Final words. Okay. So inclusion is not about being invited to the dance. It's being asked to dance. But all cannot mean all if we're not considering and designing for our students in the farthest of margins. And we need to initiate and continue that shift towards this end goal, because everybody does matter in their own way and everybody does belong.
Everybody matters in their own way and everybody belongs. Nice, nice. What about you, Mia? Why don't you take us home with your final thoughts?
Oh man, that's woo, this is a tough one, right? Final thoughts. I would have to say that right now we have teachers that are just hanging on with a thread. So in order to be inclusive and in order to use the shift, you have to be in the classroom, right? And we need you and we love you guys. And the number one predictor of student success, look it up. Dr. Hattie did a huge book on effect size. The number one predictor of student success is collective efficacy. And what that means is that as a group, as a team, we believe that we can do it. We don't have to have the skills. We just need to believe. It is, from the research, the number one effect on student success. So me and Hillary want you to believe that you can do it. Find your hype crew, find your team, and just start one thing in the shift. But believe you can do it, because if you believe together that you can do it, you will make it happen no matter what. Don't stop believing.
Don't stop believe. Okay, I'm not gonna sing. But you're right. Don't stop believing. Woo! I wish I had my mixer with me today. I want to throw like sound effects and like
confetti.
In spirit. I'm hitting buttons to like hand claps and everything. The two of you, I really do appreciate both of you coming on the show. I've had a really good time having you on. And again, your socials. Now, is there a website for the two of you?
Up and coming, and a book. So
and
we're
book.
Working on it.
Oh, when your book starts, I'm gonna have you back on. We're gonna have to promote as well. When's do you have a timeline?
Working on it.
Hillary?
Okay. Working on it. I'm trying to things are settled, so we're getting close. But I have a private my private consultancy site is I put it in the chat for y'all. It's hillaryhelpstolearn.com. I haven't updated my blog in a bit, but that's all right. But it gives you a little insight as to what we can do to help you out. And if you want to like have us come and hang out with you, we'd love to like connect and come to you or do something like this where we can help you bring shift to your setting.
That's absolutely right. But we're doing it. We just did it in Boston, actually.
Yes, we did.
We did some shifting in Boston. So just connect with us on Twitter, and you have all of our information, and our emails too. I think you have our emails. You know, Sheldon, you were amazing. That whole the whole write up that you did for all of us. So thank you for this opportunity, Sheldon. You're amazing. Like we look to you.
Yes.
You know, and your stories and all that you bring to the work. I mean, again, it's a team approach, right? Like we're just constantly learning from each other. So thank you so much.
And we're stronger together, Sheldon. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Pleasure is all mine. Have a good night. I want to give my final thoughts. So again, thank you to Hillary and for Mia for joining us today. Now, here's something I really took away from. So first of all, again, my notes is crazy. Shift. For those who are just joining, if you missed what SHIFT stands for, supports in place, have a plan, include, framework, and then the T stands for team approach. Now, I really loved what Mia said. If you don't have that F, that framework, and you have the rest of the letters, we'll just leave it there. And then also, I really liked what Hillary said about the JAB, judgments, attitudes, and beliefs. And then my final thought on this is, at the end of the day, what was said was, this is not just for students with disabilities. This is for everybody. Everybody would benefit from these type of support. I think we can all agree that at a school, having a team in place as a school will make the school run a lot better than if everybody's in their own silos, trying to do their own thing, trying to accomplish their own goals, all that jazz. We need to work as a team. So remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Let's continue to be a voice in leading equity.